just on this end, and take 60 seconds for opening statement. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you all for coming out this evening, and especially in the rain that we've had this afternoon. My name is Jarita Forehand Mays, and I am one of the many candidates for State School Superintendent for 2014. I am married to Wendell Mays, and that's of course how I got that last name. I inherited it from him, or obtained from him. I have 3 beautiful children, 2 of which are with me tonight, and they're adult children, all graduated from Dunwoody High School, products of the Cobb County school system. And my passion and purpose is the reason why I chose to run for State School Superintendent. Passion because I care about your children. Children are top priority, should be a top priority for the state of Georgia. Our future is at hand. Passion and purpose. Purpose is taking Georgia from where we are currently, competing for the bottom, but yet we need to be on top. With all the talent, the gift, the abilities that we have in us, we should be, and we deserve to be on top. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I am Tarnisha L. Dent, a native of Atlanta, a product of the Georgia public school system. I currently work with the Atlanta public school system. I am an educator. And don't be fooled by that term. That means I've been a science teacher at the high school and middle school level, a graduation coach, a school testing coordinator, a summer school district testing coordinator, an instructional mentor, and I currently serve as science instructional coach at my high school alma mater. Education is not a cause, it is a calling. It is what I am made to do. I am running this race so that we can have equity in Georgia and so that we can create sustainable education in Georgia, so that we can move Georgia public education forward in Georgia. They've taken too much of our money, and it is time that we got our money back. It is time that systems have support from the DOE that will sustain them and help them grow and raise student achievement. Thank you.
Good evening, and I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. My name is Alan Fort. This is my 38th year in education. I've been an award-winning teacher, a state championship coach, an assistant principal at a National Blue Ribbon School of Excellence, a principal at a high school for 15 years that was part of the Georgia Partnership of Excellence in Education Tour. I worked for the Georgia Department of Education as a high school redesign and school improvement specialist, so in the original team to supervise all of the graduation coaches around the state. I'm married to a teacher, Lisa Ford. I have 3 children who graduated from public schools in this state. I graduated from Georgia Southwestern College, Valdosta State University, and a 6-year from the University of Georgia. And I have served all over this state. Currently, I'm the superintendent of Quitman County Schools in Georgetown, Georgia. And I pride myself that I've been around the state because this is the job of the state school superintendent.
Day 3 of the League of Women Voters. Thank you so much, ladies, for having us. We certainly appreciate it. My name is Kira Willis. I am a product of public school, an educator in public school. This is my 21st year that I'm closing out, and a parent whose children attend public school. I graduated from Roswell High School in 1986. I live approximately 2.5 miles from here. My children attend Hembry Springs Elementary School, and my husband is on the same campus. He's an assistant principal at Elkins Point Middle School. We love it here. I moved here when I was 4 years old, 41 years ago. When I married my husband, we put roots down here and said this is the best place to raise our family. I have only taught in Fulton County, but being someone who is an educator and who has been in the educational system, I understand how it works. I know the implications of laws being passed down to our students and to our schools, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as someone who can go down to the Gold Dome and make sure that we all work on the same page underneath the governor's vision, I hope that you will look at my website. Again, my name is Kira Willis.
Hi, my name is Mary Kay Bakayao. I'm running because I want academic freedom for all of Georgia. I started teaching even before my husband and I had children back in 1988. We had the freedom to meet the needs of our kids. during 9/11, think about what you were doing during 9/11. Where were you? I was in a classroom, but that wasn't the main attack that was happening. The main attack was happening with No Child Left Behind, when George W. Bush passed No Child Left Behind and caused us to have state standards where everyone had to be the same and achieve and do everything the same. Now it's culminated in Race to the Top and No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind is even worse than No Child Left Behind. We have Common Core. I'm here to stop Common Core. I have the resolve. I can do it. I know what to do instead. 25 years of experience can get us out of this Common Core trap.
I'm Cheryl Dawes, and I'm so glad you all stayed to listen to this part of the program. One thing that might be of interest to you is that when this combination was on the Republican ballot last time, 950,000 people came to the polls and voted at the top for governor and U.S. Senate, but by the time they got to school superintendent, only 700,000 still were voting. So just by virtue of being here, and maybe you can tell your friends, I hope that you vote for me, Cheryl Dawes, but the fact that you're here and will be voting in this race is very meaningful to me. I think it's the most important part of the state is our kids' education. I'm distinguished from my opponents. I was in the classroom as a school teacher, but since that time I went on to get an MBA. And I think this is important, not just earning the degree, but 26 years of management experience, running big budgets, lots of employees, big departments. Became a turnaround specialist. When you see redundancies and money being wasted, cutting back on employees, that sort of thing, in running a department. But I am a fourth generation school teacher, so just I do have those values in running the job. Thank you.
One of the issues that comes up all the time when people are talking about education is preparing students for careers. And in Georgia, there are jobs that can't be filled that students just aren't qualified for, or the recent graduates aren't qualified for. But there are plenty of people getting English degrees. So how would you, as superintendent, help make the connection to steer kids to practical education to help them meet the career openings that are out there? And let's start with you, Ms. Dent.
One thing I think about when I think about the careers is I think about our CTAE education, and for those of you who are not familiar with that, that's career technical and agricultural education. And what we need to do is we need to implement a system of career academies within our district. To give you an example of that, there's one in Rockdale County, the Career Academy, and they offer early childhood education, they offer collision and automotive, they offer law enforcement, which is tied to forensic science, and the students are at their regular schools during the day and then they move over. We need more of that. We need more of our businesses coming in, working with our students and mentoring with our CTA teachers so that our students can graduate with licensures and certificates and work ready. Thank you.
We need to increase our CTAE programs, I agree. But I understand that for small systems, for rural systems, that they don't have a technical college close by. Ours is 50 miles away, but to solve that problem, our technical college, Columbus Tech, comes to our school and educates our kids. And we need to encourage more of our kids to go into CTAE programs because that leads to college degrees in a way. My daughter took a CTAE class and became a nurse. And we need to realize in this situation in our state that we try to make 100% of our kids college graduates. There's probably about 30% of them should go to college. The rest need to work, and we need to put value into work. We don't even make them think that just because you don't graduate in college you're a failure. Because you work and you're successful, you are a successful worker in the world.
Last night, this nice lady over there said that there are so many people with law degrees right now who don't have jobs. I really do blame us as educators sometimes with the expectation that because we all have college degrees in the classroom that we just assume all of our children are going to go to college. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I don't think it needs to be the expectation. What I do think we need to do is align our education with our students' passions and their promise. And we need to offer up more school choice. We cannot be jacks of all trades. We cannot have an automotive shop in every school. We cannot have a culinary arts in every school. But what we can do is offer inter-county school choice and intra-county school choice. I have 5 seconds, so if you want to know what those are, you can look at my website, kirawillis.com.
I think career development is so important, and as part of a grant that I ran from the U.S. Department of Education, our partner was the Futures Channel, and it was so important to get those kids excited about careers and what they could do with science and math. And so they went out and they interviewed people who were in those fields to have them show the kids what they could do in those areas. It all comes down to, in the end, as state school superintendent, who's calling the shots. And as state school superintendent, I think the kids and the parents need to call the shots and choose what they want to do. I don't think it should be dictated by a government. I think they need to consider what the opportunities are in terms of business and coordinating with what businesses need. But in the final analysis, that decision needs to be made by the students and the parents who choose those careers.
I'm sorry, what was I drew a blank.
Well, the challenge is...
Oh, the kids getting jobs. You know, the number of adults over 25 in Georgia that have college degrees is about 27%. So you'd have to figure 3/4 of the kids probably don't even want to go to college. We don't even rank low in the nation on that. We're about 26th. A lot of things Georgia ranks at the bottom, but this is one where that's pretty typical of the whole United States. I went to a high school that offered very many different career opportunities that when you graduate from high school you could get a job. The governor, I think part of this job is working with the governor and the Department of Labor to coordinate. Right now the governor has identified certain jobs, truck drivers, welders, and whatever. Working with the private sector, some of those people that need welders are willing to donate the equipment to the schools that are willing to put those programs forth. So by interacting with other departments, we can come up with the job opportunities and training.
I would say ditto on everything that my comrades mentioned as well, but what I would like to interject is the fact that we have a trajectory for everything, including careers. When people are retiring, we know where the lack will be in various careers, and it's projected, I think, anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 years in advance. So what I say is that we have to have knowledge about that as state school superintendent, and we have to plan for those things. We have to inundate our children early. They grow up saying, oh, I want to be, you know, a lawyer, a fireman, a whatever, at an early age. Why don't we inundate them with career choices at that point, early, in the early development, so that they can also be exposed to those careers at an early age, so that that desire that they have to be can be fulfilled as they go throughout their school career, their school life. Thank you.
Well, to follow up on that, it seems to me that part of the challenge is that most educators have only been educators, so they don't know about other careers. They know what they've seen on television, but they don't know what engineers actually do, and chemical engineers versus civil engineers, for example. And so, you know, their inclination is limited by their own knowledge and experience. So how do you overcome that? We'll start with you, Mr. Ford.
Well, I think that although educators have been educators all their lives, it doesn't mean they live in a shell. They learn from their students who go off to college and come back. They learn from the towns they live in. They go shop. They use these people. And they're very knowledgeable and educated people. We're all college educated. So we understand about different jobs, and that's how a teacher is valuable and educator is valuable, because we introduce these kids to these jobs. We tell them about chemical engineers or highway engineers or firemen or these things, and we bring these into the school so that the real people can also tell these students about how do you become these things, how do you set your goals, and what do you need to do to become this career person.
Ms. Willis?
Well, I think we need to consider what the purpose of public education is first. And the purpose of public education is to graduate independent, self-sufficient, productive citizens who can compete in America and in the 21st century world market, right? That's what we would hope for our young people. But so just because I've never, and actually I have done things outside of education because I'm a teacher and that's what we do. We have summers off, we have 10 weeks. We usually do other things such as research or outdoor things, or I was an actor before I became a teacher. But the bottom line is that we can foster a love of learning and foster the passion in our children to learn whatever it is that they want to learn. Assuming that they're all going to go to college, though, is something that I say we need to stop doing.
This is what we did with the Futures Channel. We had them get video clips of actual scientists, actual mathematicians. And then they would see these video clips and get that motivation of you can design skateboards, you can get a solar energy farm, all of these things. And then what we did is we took our math program and we got problem-solving activities from the actual math and science fields. So kids in their math and science classes were doing actual problems from engineers. And so if you go to thefutureschannel.com, you'll see some of these examples of what we worked on as part of our initiative. That is so important to bring in those careers to our students so that they have that motivation, because if they say, why are we doing this, then we can tell them.
You know, I think it's an interesting question that I would even apply to the college professors. A lot of times they've not worked in the industry that they're teaching. So I had a professor one time leave her job and go work at a chemical company just so she could come back and have more hands-on. But I don't think it's an issue so much in high school. That I think we do have exposure to parents that come in and a lot's going on with letting the kids know what types of careers. Something I found interesting recently is that we can't even hire a Latin teacher over in Johns Creek. And I said, I guess nobody grows up saying I'm going to grow up to be a Latin teacher. So I think just again, putting out to the students where the job openings are, the career opportunities, look at trends right now. I happen to be a cancer survivor, and I was looking at my oncologist website today. For one practice, they have 40 job openings right now, and they're all for nursing and different things. So I think if we just keep them informed of the fields that are hiring would be pertinent.
That's a very good question, because no one knows everything. And stepping into a new job, there's many things that you're going to have to learn and obtain. And unfortunately, you would have to probably rely on someone that has that knowledge and actually hire someone to give you that knowledge, and more than just one someone, so that you can actually make a good decision in terms of what's going to benefit children. Because just hiring one is not good enough, and you may have to hire 2 or 3 and then decide which one works best for the benefit of children. Also, when I think about the fact that I don't know anything about engineering, I'm not an engineer. My daughter, I have one that's going to become one. However, I have a TGI Girls Tech that exposes young girls in middle school to, through STEM, about engineering. So I bring people in to help those girls be exposed to something that I don't have knowledge of. Thank you.
One thing we can do is build capacity in our teachers. One thing I've learned in education is that I had to build relationships with my student. I just had a conversation with a student who wants to go into fashion marketing. Miss Den is not a professional in fashion marketing, but I gave her some ideas of how she can interject herself into that world. And I think we encourage our teachers to build relationship with students by going back to our advisory programs, having those teachers connect with that one group of students. We bring people in and have career days. And we also listen to what students want to do and build that knowledge base for them. My students know that once I retire from education, I'm going to go into the catering field, and they find that so fascinating. And I've told them my plan, and one thing we have to do is helping them plan for their future. Thank you.
most discussions about education policy sooner or later come around to parents and the goal of increased parental involvement. As superintendent, what sort of things can a superintendent do to encourage parent involvement, and what would the parents be involved doing? Ms. Willis.
What I have seen in the 21 years, I'm not as old as Alan, but what I've seen in this time is that what used to be a partnership between school and home and the community has sort of become almost an adversarial fighting, where we're pointing fingers at each other, and the parents are pointing the fingers at the schools, and the kids are just sitting there looking pretty, and the schools are pointing the fingers at the parents. And instead of pointing fingers, what we need to do is everybody sit down at the table and say, we are all here for the children. Now let's all talk so that we can work for the children. And we've got to stop fighting over our kids and start fighting for our kids. And you'll hear me say that a lot.
We need to really honor the wishes of the parents and know that they have the ultimate authority over their kids. Once we acknowledge that as educators, we will welcome them into our classrooms, and they will take that responsibility, because right now with the policies that we have, with our standards and our testing systems, parents don't have any input. Teachers don't have any input. School board members don't have any input. Even people in our state don't have any input, because it's all being decided at a level outside of our state. If we bring that local authority back to those parents, they will love that. And they will take that, because parents do care the most about their kids. And that research shows the greater the parental involvement, the higher the test scores.
I come to this position with a PTA background. A lot of times people think of PTA as cookies and coffee, but really it's a lobbying group. So for 18 years I've been the legislative liaison, working with the legislators, trying to get the school nurses in or class size. And I was afraid that probably some politicians would run for this position. That hasn't really turned out to be true, but I wanted to represent the parents and not be a politician, not be a legislator, just so they would become more involved. When you look at the PTA membership across the state, the counties that are performing better have a higher parent involvement. And I think it's time for these PTA leaders to come forward and be the decision makers and leaders on behalf of the parents.
Thank you. This is so dear to me, because just like we have children, and when we get that first child, we don't know everything. I always often wish I could keep my mom with me through figuring my children, because she's had that experience. So same thing with parents with children in schools. They don't come knowing everything. So I suggest Parent University. I think it's important, because knowledge is king. It's going to build America. It's going to build Georgia. It's going to make us strong. So if we have parents and children and teachers working together, we cannot lose. Also, I was going to say that we could tie in, to get some parents involved, we could tie in driver's license with parent involvement. I mean, parent has to serve so many hours of, attending PTA or doing whatever in order for their child to get their driver's license.
I think that schools are only as strong as their leaders. And one thing as state school superintendent, I have to be an example. I have to be involved with districts, helping them with their community support. When I grew up, my mom knew my teachers knew my mom. They had each other's phone numbers. There was a collaborative effort. My mom was welcomed in the school at all times, not just on PTA, not just at open house. Every day, any time. We didn't have to schedule anything. That's what we need to go back to. The school is part of the community. And it shouldn't be a scheduled event for a parent visitation. And we need to go back to those basic fundamental rules where parents and teachers are partners, because that's what they are. I talk to my parents now. I built those relationships. And as state school superintendent, I'm going to set that example with my relationships with districts. Thank you.
What we need to understand is that all parent groups aren't built like Fayette County or North Fulton. There are rural parents that might come by the school every now and then. They did not have a pleasant experience in school. They might work 30 miles away and they just drive to work and come home, and school is an extra trip for them. So it's what we have to do at the DOE as State School Superintendent, is to design multiple parent partnering alternatives to take into consideration those that live within 2 or 3 miles of the school and are very active in their school, love school, they're college educated, and those who live in rural areas that need education from kindergarten. Sometimes they flourish in elementary school, and by the time they get in high school, they say, kind of, call me when they graduate. And we need to learn how to keep them positively involved in all schools in the whole state.
Well, we've come to the point where we need to wrap up with closing, not arguments, I guess. Everybody's been pretty nice. But this is your opportunity to, for 60 seconds, to deliver your closing. And so I think, where do we end up? Oh, you're next. Okay, please. Yes, sir.
Okay, if I'm elected as state school superintendent, the testing system will be revised so that we have freedom and teachers can teach what parents and teachers want to teach. And the only thing that the State Department of Education is going to worry about is if the kids can read, if they can write, and if they can do math. So every year you will have a report on their reading level, their writing level, their math level, and verifiable science. Everything else, all of these arguments over standards and testing, all of that will go away, because I am the only person with the resolve and the knowledge base that can get us out of this Common Core train wreck, so our state can jump past all these other states that are bogged down by this nonsense. That's why you should elect me, Mary Kay Bacayao, State School Superintendent.
My biggest issue is illiteracy. We have children born in Georgia that cannot read and write by the time they graduate. We have kids earning the, the Hope Scholarship. They get to college and have to take remedial reading. And this is just, shame on the K-12 system for letting that happen. We have some kids that are born in other countries that come into our school system, and they've just been, Mary Kay was talking about Leave No Child Behind. If you're a non-English speaker, you're just put over in this other category and promoted along without being tested. I would request that they be tested in English, that children, the governor has already put forward some programs for interventions to help these kids. Until 3rd grade, you learn to read. After 3rd grade, you read to learn. And so that's the demarcation mark I have in mind, that we would apply those interventions, make sure that the kids are treated all the same, that they have to read and write in English before they can be promoted.
Once again, I want to thank the Women's League voters and also the AKs for putting on such an elaborate event for the last 3 days. And then thank you all again for coming out as well and putting up with this when you could be at home. But putting all those things aside, we have some serious issues here in Georgia when it comes to education. And we need to put our children first. We need to put aside all the political idiosyncrasies and everything that possibly could interfere with our future of our children. And we need to do what's right by them. So what I say is go in with your conscience and your heart. No one knows who you vote when you go in, but you. The thing is that how do you want your child's future to look? I say go in like, I love Superman. Go in like Clark Kent. You know how he goes in and he fumbles and whatever, but he comes out Superman. Let's make our children winners. Thank you.
The Office of State School Superintendent cannot remain the same. Our superintendent needs to be actively involved with our districts so that that person can make the right decisions. This can no longer be a job where you sit in an ivory tower and meet with people who are not implementing curriculum, who are not touching students. We need a superintendent that's active, focused, and ready to move Georgia towards sustainable education. Education that we as educators in Georgia have sat down and agreed upon what we want our students to know and learn. We need to bring our communities back into partnerships with our schools and our businesses. We need to take the politics out, get our monies back, and use our monies appropriately so we can use our personnel effectively. Education in Georgia has been left behind. If you elect me on May 20th as your state school superintendent, I will move Georgia forward. Tarnisha L. Dent, State School Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. My website is alanfortga.com, and I hope you'll visit that. I get tired sometimes. I mean, the state school superintendent is supposed to be the #1 cheerleader for our educational system, our state. And it's got a long ways to go. But we can't say how bad this is and bad that is and then expect to be your state school superintendent and you get in on a negative vibe here. I want to tell you this from the National Association of Manufacturers. Georgia's ranked 8th best school system in the United States, and it's number 8 in the most desirable states to move to because of industry and competitiveness. This is what I'm going to do as state school superintendent. I'm going to open up communication lines with the governor, lieutenant governor, general assembly, board of regents, technical college board of regents to educate our kids and to work together in the system. We're going to understand where our funding comes from, and we're going to understand where our funding goes. We're going to have our kids ready for life when they graduate from high school, and we're going to make teaching and learning better, simpler, and we'll take care of curriculum and assessment as that comes to us. But that's what we need to do in our state if I'm elected state school superintendent. Thank you.
So again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out. My name is Kira Willis. We need to think about what it is that is the job of the state school superintendent. The place for a bull in a china shop is in the china shop. It's not to walk in and upset the cart, the apple cart, and make everybody angry. That's what the other superintendents have done, and they haven't done a very good job in pushing Georgia's education forward. So the state school superintendent's job is to work under the governor's vision through the legislative dollars and with the state board of education and the local boards of education. That is her job. She is to visit the local boards, and she is to make sure and be sort of give advice to the governor on educational policy. She does not the end-all be-all of education, and we need to understand that if we're going to move Georgia even more forward than it's been moving, we need to make sure that we play nicely and that we are all on the same page. KiraWillis.com.